Good to see everybody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session of the Curriculum Fair. We are joined by Angela from Innovamat, who will be sharing more about their math program. So, Angela, it is all you. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm excited to be here with you today to present a bit more about what we do at Innovamat and our program Thinking Math for our TK students, the little ones, and how to start planting those early seeds for math learning. So I'm just gonna go on and ahead and get started. And I could not start in any other way, which is to do a bit of math. So we're just going to do a bit of math, with those of you who I have in the room today. And my question to you is, which one doesn't belong? Can I get a couple of answers just to get started and warm up today's session? No, don't be shy. Otherwise, I'm going to start
All
calling.
the
Thank
bottom
you, Taylor.
bottom right, the bottom right. There's only
Bottom
two
right.
only two objects instead of three. Only two shapes.
Okay. Okay. Does everybody agree? Oh no, Jaslyn, what do you think?
I originally said what Taylor was going to say, but I could also see that the
Mm-hmm.
top left doesn't fit. Like Nikki just said, there's no yellow hexagon.
Okay, there's no yellow hexagon. So like now, what do we do? You need to have different arguments. How do we come to an agreement? Does anybody else have a different opinion from what Jocelyn's and Taylor said? We've got bottom right and top left. Does anybody have a different opinion?
Okay. I'm going to say that the top left doesn't belong because
Uh-huh.
all of the shapes in the top left have the same number of sides, and
Okay.
the other three
Interesting.
have different numbers of sides.
Mhm. I love it. So, what I love as well about what you said is you're also saying the top left doesn't belong, but it's for a different reason, right? It's not about color. You're seeing it from the like if you're putting on you're counting the number of sides, right, of each shape. That's sort of like the lens that you're looking at this from, instead of looking at it from the lens of the color. I love it. So why are we doing this? What's all this conversation? What math are we doing when we are trying to see and answer the question which one doesn't belong? We are reasoning, we are communicating, we are problem solving, right? These are content, that these are mathematical thinking that is as important as it is, to be able to know and name the colors and name the shapes. And it's important when we're working with our little ones that we're already instilling in them this mathematical thinking, and these kind of activities are very good as well for them to do. um what I'm gonna do is I had another activity. I may just like ask you to do something very quick, which is, do you all have pen and paper with you? Okay. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is I'm gonna dictate a drawing to you. And so I would like you to draw it and see what comes out of the drawing. Is the instructions understood? Okay, perfect. So if you're ready, what I'm going to ask you to do is draw the following. You're going to draw a monster. Okay, so we're drawing the a drawing of a monster, and the face is a triangle. Okay, the monster has two eyes, and the two eyes are little triangles. The nose is a circle, and the mouth is half a circle. I love to see everybody super focused. The monster has three arms, and each arm is one line. Three arms, one line. Three arms per side. I'm going to make it a bit more complicated. And finally, the monster has five legs, and each leg is a circle. I see everybody's drawing. I'm going to wait until I see you looking at the screen again, which tells me you're done. All right, let's move and see. I'm going to show you. Does this look like the drawing that you did? No? Jocelyn says nothing like what you did. I see Christine nodding, some so. What do you notice from these drawings and the one that you did? What stands out? Does anything stand out?
It looks like they were told the nose was a star. We were told it was a circle.
Okay, okay, fair. So these nose is a different shape. Anything else?
And 3 eyes versus 2.
Okay, 3 eyes versus 2. So look at all of the mathematical language that we're already using, right? Like I know that you know the word star. I know that you can see the difference between 3 objects and 2 objects. What about the shape of the face? What is there anything interesting about the shape of the face?
Well, one of the triangles is upside down when the others have the point at the top.
Mm. Now we're talking something very interesting. One is upside down. What does upside down mean? What is an upside down triangle? These are all very interesting conversations, right? Again, math is so much about like communicating and being able to reason and being able, to communicate with precision, which is something that we can already start doing, early on with, the little ones when we are doing activities like this. So one of the things that's very interesting, right, about these triangles, which brings, brings me back to your comment, Nikki, is how many possible triangles could you have drawn just by me saying the face is a triangle, right? How curious is it that 5 out of 6 people draw the same exact triangle? When I didn't say anything else, I didn't say it was equilateral, I didn't say it was sitting on its bottom, right? But the reality is that there are 1,000, there are infinite number of, different shapes that a triangle can take. But when we're very little and when we introduce triangles in a poster style, right? In the very traditional triangle that, they're introduced to us as like, this is the description and this is the representation of a triangle, then we lose the true meaning of what a triangle what a triangle truly is, which is just a shape, that has 3 different sides. So this is what is known as deep mathematical understanding, right? Being able to know math at a deep level. And it's also something that it's very typically thought to be not something relevant when we have TK students, right? When we have students who are 3 and 4 years old, but that it can already be relevant and it can start planting strong foundations for later on when they are in higher grades. So before we move into the program, so that I show you a bit of, what the program looks like, I'll just wrap this up by saying, what does high quality math instruction look like when we're talking about 4 years old, right? When you're thinking about your children and you're trying to understand, what's the best way that I can teach them math in these early days. I always like to think about 2 things. First, that there's rich math learning, right? That, there's mathematical thinking in addition to content, that students are building strong foundations for understanding, as we saw with the triangle, and that they are following natural learning trajectories so that every new concept is introduced in connection with existing knowledge. And then the second thing is that it's developmentally appropriate, right? So when students are little, they learn by playing, they learn by moving around, they learn by using their own bodies to make sense of the world, they learn by making connections between, what they find when they're playing in the park or they are, out with their friends, connecting that with pure mathematical content, right? And so this framework is always very useful to make sense of, what does rich math instruction and learning look like for 4 years old. Now with the basis and the theory done, let me show you a bit of what our program looks like and what we try to achieve to help you and support you in guiding your children's and students' learning, depending on whether you're a teacher or a parent here today. What I'm going to show you now is I was going to show you another thing, and I'm just going to need to move things around a bit in my screen just a second so that I show you what I wanted to show you. There you go. So Thinking Math, which is our TK Math program, gives you access to what we call the Classroom Manager, which is a digital platform that contains different resources for you to guide your students' learning. So you're going to find mainly three types of resources in the platform. The first is called the workshops. Workshops are full lesson plans where students are introduced to specific mathematical content, and they're going to be guided through different activities to be able to acquire that knowledge. So for example, these are the workshops that that we have in the program. They're called from 1 to 3, position and path, spheres and cylinders. So they're gonna be working on the different content blocks across the whole math domain. If we access as an example the spheres and cylinders workshop, you will see what the lesson plan looks like. There's always gonna be a summary, right? Their standards are gonna be tagged. You're gonna have here additional resources as well as an indication of what kind of material you need to be able to complete the lesson. And the bulk of the lesson is what you find here at the bottom. It's all gonna be guided very much step by step on. It's going to include different songs. It's going to include different videos. For example, here we have a song about rolling that invites the students to represent with themselves, with their own body, what it's looked like to be a cylinder, what it's looked like to be a sphere. And so you can see the little ones here dancing. And it's very cute and heartwarming as always. So that's gonna be included as part of the program, right? Like it's gonna have stories, it's gonna have videos, it's gonna have dances, all included within the program itself. And then within the lesson, there are gonna be step-by-step guidance on which questions to ask, what are moments that you can foster deeper mathematical thinking, like here, for example, attending to precision. As well as questions, as I was saying, and lots of tips to help you understand the why behind the math that is being presented, right? So what is truly the difference between a cylinder and a sphere, right? Like how do we argue that mathematically? It's all going to be built in so that you're ready to be able to help your students or children learn that concept. It's going to come as well full with pictures so that you get a better sense of what this looks like in practice when you're doing that at home. That's a workshop. An important part of workshops is that just to wrap up, that they end in what we call a representation page. So representation page, if you come in here and then you click, it's going to show up in the classroom player. It's a blank page. And the idea of a blank page is that versus traditional worksheets or traditional student work that we're used to sometimes seeing in like traditional workbooks, this is open-ended, right? This is an opportunity for you to ask your children or your students after you've been doing some math activities together, can you represent what you learned today? And the beauty of just this very open-ended question is that it gives them agency to represent their learning in any way that they can. And that gives you, as their guide, a formative opportunity to assess what skills they've learned instead of a closed activity where it's going to be limited to whatever that closed activities is asking them to do. So that's a very beautiful part of the program that's gonna be used to wrap up all of the workshops. The next type of resource are the spaces. Spaces are different type of activities that are connected to art, they're connected to construction, they're connected to science, because exploring math in connection to other domains is a critical part of their developmentally appropriate journey. And so, for example, if I click on here, this is going to be a math game using cards and cups, in which students are gonna, work on numerals and quantities in the 2 to 4 range. So you're gonna have here the game explained, and then something very, very important and very valuable is that in addition to the game, you're also gonna have what we call observation tables, which are tables that tell you what you may be observing from the student, what you can ask to foster deeper thinking and learning, and what you can interpret from their answers, right? So, for example, if the student is using verbs to create groups that match the quantity shown on one of the cards, right? They have a card saying 3, and then they can match that to the quantities. Then you can ask them, what did you do? Why did you put these many verbs in the cup? So that you know that it's not by chance, but you actually know that there's something, there's intentionality behind what they're doing. And then if they do it correctly, then you can interpret that they've acquired the skill of cardinality, right? Which is the idea of knowing that the last number in any group of objects is equivalent to the number of objects in that group. So those are going to be the spaces, and the final type of resource that you're going to have in the classroom are different routines, different short games that you can also explore. With the little ones, for example, when there's a new day, and then you're using the calendar, or you can have the number of the day, the which one doesn't belong, like the one that we did. There's a whole collection of different options for which one doesn't belong that you can explore and that you can use with the little ones at any point in time, not just in a given sequence, but depending on the time of the day or the moment of the year. So that's what's going to be included in the platform. With that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up so that I leave some time for questions. I think we have 5 more minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Perfect. Let me stop and see if there are any questions. Rebecca, any questions from your end, perhaps? Anything you're particularly interested in exploring, or Taylor?
Go ahead, Taylor.
Hi. I would just love to hear a little bit about what families are getting when they order this. Is it
Yeah.
just a digital login, or are there any other physical components they're receiving?
Yeah, very, very good question. So it's just a digital component, but it's not a digital. It's digitally facing for the parent, but it's not digitally facing for the student, right? So that's an important distinction. The student would be the idea is that with this digital login, they access all of these resources so that then they can guide, those activities and those lessons with the students, in which they're going to be manipulating different objects, they're going to be playing, they're going to be moving themselves. So that's how we believe learning happens, and then it's facilitated through this digital learning platform for parents.
So all of the workshops, which are
Mhm.
great, I'm loving the layout of it. I'm trying
Mhm.
to make sure I
Yeah,
understand. It would be the
for
expectation
sure.
that the parent has all of those materials already, and that they would
Mhm.
be building those workshops for each day. And is there
Mhm.
a materials list available so that they
Yeah.
can have that kind of
Yeah,
prepared? Okay.
I can
very.
you can
Yeah,
if you want to show them where the materials list is in the
yeah.
platform, and then while you're pulling that up, I can speak to that a little bit. So you one, you all of our teachers have access to the Innovamat platform, so you can actually go in and access everything that she's showing us today.
Mhm.
So what you'll see in the materials list, though, are the majority of the materials are pretty standard math manipulative items. They are all already available in the pre-approved materials for TK Math on LPAD. So we already did a review of that to make sure that they were there. And then there are a couple of, I mean, for the most part, what kids are doing is these hands-on activities and games. There's a couple of spots where there are printables in the
Hmm.
curriculum. It's a pretty small number of printables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's for example, if I go, let's see, like in the previous one, like for example, here in materials, there's a, it says resource song lyrics, right? So like that could also be like downloaded and like printed and then like signed together, or the representation page that I showed you, which is this blank page where they represent their learning. This can also be printed, and then it can be printed in two sides. One is the blank page and the other side is the summary of what they've worked on together, and then this can be kept as a collection of student representations, for like their own tracking, or for you as a teacher to then guide on like what they're learning with those representations. But it's also not needed, right? It depends on how far you want to go in implementing the program. And then for each lesson as well, you'll have here the materials that are needed for that lesson. um so if they have the Innovamat icon, then it's a math manipulative. If they don't have the Innovamat icon, then it's just basically like, we try to provide like multiple different options so that, whatever you have at home, you can use to be able to do the lesson. Yeah. And I think it may be useful if I show you some pictures um of students doing, oh, sorry, not this one. Because I think that may give you like a better sense of like what does actually a workshop look like. Uh, so it's here. So these that you're seeing on the screen, um, these are pictures of groups of students doing the workshops. So, for example, in these, on to the right, they're doing a geometry workshop. So by the end, they are painting and coloring the different shapes. On the middle, it's a workshop where they're decomposing number 9, and so they're pretending that they are in a bus with the chairs. On the bottom left corner, they are categorizing their shoes. And that's, like a very nice activity where it connects with data science, right? And being able to analyze data. And it's a precursor to graphing. On the structure, like this picture on the middle in the bottom is a structure game where they're playing, like two of the students are playing. So that's, this is guided by that, workshop teacher guide, but then the reality for the student looks like this. And then it's similar as well for the spaces, right? Where they're going to be connected to art, they're going to be connected to construction, they're going to be uh, spaces around symbolic play, right? Where you're going to have a prompt and a guide on, what could be a good question or a good activity to propose a student to pretend that they're in a supermarket, right? But like, how can we go beyond just saying, pretend you're like, pretend you're in the supermarket, and ask questions that, are truly going to foster that mathematical thinking? And how are you going to be able to observe whether they're actually progressing or not on their learning?
Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none. Angela, thank you so much.
Hmm.
This was so
Yeah,
helpful.
thank you so much.
Appreciate you sharing information about thinking math. So,
I appreciate it.
yeah, thank you.